Ethan had a problem, and that problem was Julian. Julian was striking, with a lean, statuesque frame and eyes the color of a winter sky that regarded the world with a cool disinterest that Ethan found maddeningly alluring. Ethan himself had a short fuse, a temper that sparked easily, but he told himself it was all part of the game. The goal was simple: get Julian into his bed. After weeks of relentless effort, a campaign of charm and persistence, he'd finally succeeded. He, a simple beta, had won the affections of this perfect omega. But the moment they were on the mattress, the dynamic shifted with breathtaking speed. Julian, the supposed omega, flipped him onto his back with a strength that felt impossible. The anger radiating from Julian was a palpable force, a cold front moving into the room. Ethan realized it was because he carried the scent of another alpha, a lingering trace from the crowded university campus he couldn't even detect. Before he could process the injustice of it, Julian, his face an impassive mask, was hauling him off the bed and toward the bathroom. The shower erupted with icy water, and Ethan gasped, the shock of it making him tremble. He reached out, his hand closing around Julian's wrist, and pleaded for forgiveness, explaining he hadn't even noticed that the campus was swarming with alphas. Julian offered no reply. He simply turned Ethan around, his hands surprisingly warm as they moved over his skin, scrubbing away the offending scent along with the chilling water. The goosebumps that covered Ethan's body began to shift from cold to something else entirely. A low sound escaped his throat. He twisted back to face Julian, whose sculpted features were illuminated by the stark light of the bathroom, looking both severe and exquisite. Ethan's hand came up, his fingers fumbling with the button of Julian's shirt. He asked if Julian wanted to join him. Julian's eyes narrowed slightly, a silent, permissive gesture. A thrill shot through Ethan. Tonight was the night. His fingers worked faster, unfastening the shirt to reveal the pale, smooth skin beneath. But his gaze caught on the defined pectoral muscles. He froze for a second. He told himself it was just a well-developed chest for an omega. To confirm this, he reached out, his hand closing over the firm muscle. He murmured aloud about how an omega could have a chest like this, giving a playful squeeze. His wrist was seized in an iron grip before he could finish the thought. Julian's fingers were long and elegant, even as they held him captive. A slow, mesmerizing smile touched Julian's lips. His other hand moved with deliberate slowness, closing around the front of Ethan's shorts, a chillingly possessive gesture. Julian's voice was a low whisper, informing him that next time he brought another's scent into their space, there would be consequences. Later, wrapped in a towel on the bed, Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. Julian's threat had been terrifying, but also beautiful. That raw possessiveness felt like proof of affection. He rolled over, giddy. Julian was still in the bathroom, the sound of the shower running again. He had always been private, never letting Ethan see him fully unclothed. Ethan chalked it up to shyness. After all, they'd only been together for a little over a month. For a 26-year-old beta who had spent his life focused on work and self-sufficiency, the pace felt exhilaratingly fast, but perhaps Julian needed more time. Their meeting had felt like something out of a movie. 3 months prior, a friend, hearing Ethan was still single, had dragged him to a club that promised a unique crowd. Ethan, a medical resident who'd spent the last 6 years looking at the world through a microscope, was immediately repulsed by the sheer density of bodies, the unhygienic press of strangers. He was ready to leave, but his friend insisted on one drink. He sat at the bar, deflecting the advances of a few omegas whose pheromones screamed desperation. Ethan knew he was decent-looking, tall, fit, with a clean-cut face that omegas seemed to favor. As he was fending off another hopeful, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A circle had formed around a central figure. The club's lighting was dim, casting everything in shadow, but the silhouette was undeniably graceful. His friend, returning from the restroom, had the immediate gossip. He relayed that some drunk alpha had groped an omega and gotten his ass handed to him. Just then, the main lights flared on, illuminating the scene. The Omega in the center had wavy, ash-blonde hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble. His expression was a mixture of contempt and cold amusement. At his feet, an Alpha whimpered, clutching his head. Ethan felt a jolt, like a physical blow to the chest. He murmured the word angel. He turned to his friend and declared, without a shred of doubt, that he was going to pursue him. Ethan had always been praised for his determination. He saw his chance to be the hero and seized it, stepping in to de-escalate the situation and successfully escorting the beautiful stranger home. That was how he had met Julian. What followed was a shameless 2-month campaign of early morning coffee deliveries, thoughtful gifts, and constant attention until Julian finally relented. They were together. Ethan had wanted to celebrate with fireworks, but Julian proved to be remarkably reserved in an age of instant gratification. He deflected every one of Ethan's advances, direct or indirect, with a placid expression of polite confusion. Yet, he seemed to enjoy tormenting Ethan, leaving him in a constant state of agitated desire. Now, as Julian emerged from the steamy bathroom, his body glowing and wrapped in a plush robe, Ethan's earlier frustration melted away. He lay on the bed, chin propped on his hands, a foolish grin on his face. He beckoned to him. The collar of Julian's robe gaped open as he moved, offering tantalizing glimpses. Julian cast a sidelong glance at him as he toweled his hair. Ethan scrambled up from the bed like an eager puppy, offering to blow-dry his hair for him. Julian's mother was European, and he'd inherited her hair color and slight wave. He had a bad habit of letting it air dry, and after Ethan's initial nagging failed, he had simply taken over the task himself. Julian seemed to have grown to like it, a silent request in his eyes whenever he emerged from a shower. The hum of the hairdryer filled the room as Ethan ran his fingers through the damp strands, the warm air turning them the color of ripe wheat. They were so beautiful. Julian, scrolling on his phone, suddenly spoke. He stated that Ethan wouldn't have to pick him up starting tomorrow. The gentle intimacy of the moment shattered. Ethan's mind raced. Was this it? Was Julian dumping him over the pheromone incident? He dropped the hairdryer and fell to his knees in front of Julian, his voice cracking as he begged him not to leave, promising it would never happen again. Tears of genuine panic welled in his eyes. Julian looked down at him, a flicker of amusement in his gaze. He lifted Ethan's chin, and a slow smile spread across his face, transforming his severe beauty into something breathtaking. He gently informed Ethan that he wasn't leaving him. He was just going to be busy with work for a few days. The relief that flooded Ethan was so immense it left him lightheaded. He sniffled, wiping his nose on his sleeve. It seemed the internet was right. A few tears could solve anything. Nearly 5 days passed without seeing Julian. Every time they spoke, he claimed to be swamped with work. The calls were still warm, but Ethan yearned for more. A seed of doubt began to sprout. Maybe Julian was using work as an excuse to fade away. He was just off his shift when his friend Ryan called, suggesting they go out. Hearing Julian was away, Ryan proposed a couple of drinks at a bar. Ethan initially refused, saying he was a taken man, but Ryan's teasing about him being whipped wore him down. He hung up and headed to the address Ryan sent. It was another bar. Ryan remarked on how well-behaved he'd become, ordering him a low-alcohol beer. He was a good friend, despite his gossipy nature. Ryan asked why, after nearly a week, Ethan hadn't just gone to find Julian. Ethan mumbled that he hadn't been home. Ryan then asked about his workplace, and Ethan's silence was answer enough. The realization hit him with surprising force. He knew small things about Julian: his dislike of cilantro, his aversion to long car rides, his meticulous cleanliness. He knew he was wealthy, but he didn't know what Julian did for a living or what his own pheromones smelled like. Julian never volunteered information about himself. It was a painful omission. Ryan patted his shoulder, offering a cynical take that a man that attractive probably wasn't in love with him, but was just stringing him along. The words were a sharp sting. Ethan tried to defend his devotion, but the hurt was real. He downed his beer and started texting Julian a barrage of needy messages, asking if he was off work, if they could meet, proclaiming how much he missed him. There was no reply. He was about to despair when Ryan slapped a hand over his face, telling him not to make a scene. Ryan then leaned in close, his voice low. He told Ethan he had some advice and pressed a small vial into his palm. Ethan, dizzy from the alcohol, asked what it was. Ryan explained it was something to ensure the night ended successfully. The implication sobered Ethan instantly. He shoved the vial back at his friend, disgusted. He was a doctor, not a predator. Ryan shrugged and pocketed the vial. The mood was ruined. Ethan finished his drink and got up to leave, his head spinning. Ryan sighed and helped him toward the door. As they stumbled outside, Ryan suddenly stopped. He called Ethan's name and pointed. He thought his boyfriend might be cheating. The words sobered Ethan completely. He squinted in the direction Ryan was pointing. Not far from the entrance, Julian was leaning against the wall, a frown creasing his brow. He was surrounded by a group of men. One particularly aggressive-looking alpha was leaning in close. His words lost to the thrum of the club, but his body language predatory. This wasn't cheating. Julian was being harassed. Ethan surged forward, but Ryan pulled him back, urging him to calm down and listen first. He pointed out that Julian had already lied about being busy. They ducked into a shadowed alcove where they could hear without being seen. The conversation drifted over clearly. One of the men asked where Julian had been. Another answered for him, saying he'd found a new toy, a beta who was clinging to him annoyingly. He was just playing with him for a bit. Another man suggested just getting rid of the beta. The first one laughed, saying the beta was good-looking and probably a fun ride. They were talking about him. Before Ethan could process the raw humiliation, there was a loud crash. He looked up to see Julian holding the neck of a shattered beer bottle, his expression murderous. Ryan beside him swallowed hard. In that instant, Ethan understood. The teasing, the games, it was all a lie. He had agreed to be with Ethan for his own amusement. A sharp pain lanced through his chest, but seeing Julian's rage, his first instinct was still to protect him. He stepped out of the shadows. He called his name, his voice tight. He walked over and gently took the broken bottle from Julian's hand, his gaze fixed on the man who was now bleeding from a cut on his head. As a doctor, he couldn't just walk away. He got a towel from the bar, applied pressure to the wound, and put the man in a cab to the hospital. When he returned, Ryan was gone. Only Julian remained, watching him with dark, unreadable eyes. The alcohol had worn off, but his mind was a confusing haze. His throat felt like sandpaper. He managed to tell Julian he would take him home. Julian said nothing, his intense gaze never leaving him. It felt like a predator sizing up its prey. Ethan worriedly reached out to touch his forehead. It was burning hot. He felt a surge of panic. Julian's state felt eerily like an alpha in rut, but that was impossible. He was just sick and upset. He couldn't look at Julian during the silent cab ride, the words of the men at the bar echoing in his mind. This might be their last night together. The thought was unbearable. He had been so devoted, and it was all just a game to Julian. As the cab pulled up to his apartment building, Julian's hand, which had been resting on his waist, tightened. Julian gave the driver the address. He wanted to ask why, but one look at Julian's pained expression silenced him. His own apartment was only minutes away. The moment the car stopped, Ethan scrambled out. Julian followed, paying the driver and trailing him to his door in silence. Inside, the tension was suffocating. Julian lunged, trying to push him toward the bed. Ethan sidestepped, his adrenaline surging. He demanded to know what Julian was doing. Julian's voice was a raw, cold rasp as he repeated the question back to him. He grabbed Ethan's wrist, his grip bruising, and started tearing at his clothes. The unexpected strength was shocking. Ethan fought back, shoving him away. He yelled that Julian was insane, rubbing his wrist. He was the one who should be angry, being treated like a plaything. Before he could voice his accusations, Julian spoke. His words laced with a strange bitterness. He said he sometimes doubted if Ethan even liked him at all. The accusation was so absurd it made Ethan laugh. He had been so utterly devoted. He was about to retort when Julian continued, his voice dangerously low. He pointed out that Ethan hadn't asked him a single question after what he'd overheard, that he seemed ready to just walk away. He took a step closer, and then another, his presence overwhelming. He raised his hand, revealing the small vial Ryan had given Ethan. Ryan must have put it in his pocket. Julian looked at him as if he were the lowest form of scum. Ethan tried to deny it, but Julian cut him off, his tone frigid and wounded. He accused Ethan of only wanting to sleep with him. The words, the unfairness of it all, ignited Ethan's own temper. He felt aggrieved and cornered. He liked Julian, he truly did. He hadn't been faking his affection. His brain short-circuited. He yelled back, asking so what if he did, after Julian had treated him like a dog. The air went still. The room felt suddenly dim and cold. Julian let out a low, unsettling laugh. A sneer twisted his lips. He said if that's what Ethan thought, then he would make it a reality. He unscrewed the vial, tossed the pills into his mouth, and bit down with a sickening crunch. Before Ethan could react, Julian was on him, grabbing his collar and pulling them both onto the bed. Ethan's voice trembled as he told him to calm down, even as he found himself pinning Julian beneath him. The aura coming off Julian was terrifying, 100 times more intense than the last time. Julian's hands wrapped around his waist, and he licked a trace of white foam from his lips. Any other time, the sight would have driven Ethan wild. Now his hands shook uncontrollably. Julian mocked his hesitation, his voice dripping with scorn. The barrage of accusations, the complete shift in Julian's personality, it all pushed Ethan over the edge. He kissed him, hard and angry, a desperate attempt to silence the cruel words. For a brief moment, sadness washed over him. But then Julian's hands were under his shirt, and a different kind of realization dawned. The beautiful man he'd been chasing was offering himself up. At this point, it didn't matter what Julian thought of him. He lifted his head and declared with grim finality that he dared. The next thing he knew, clothes were gone. A strange, intoxicating scent filled the air, something rich and spicy that clouded his thoughts. He was lost in the moment, driven by pure instinct, until the hands on his waist tightened with incredible force. In a dizzying flip, their positions were reversed. Julian was on top, his breathing slow and heavy against Ethan's ear. His voice was a husky murmur, a seductive promise that now, it was his turn. It was afternoon when Ethan finally woke up, alone in the tangled sheets. He had a vague memory of Julian being called away early, a gentle kiss pressed to his forehead and a promise to be back. The night had been a blur of frenzied passion. Something felt wrong. He lay still, letting the memories surface. It slowly dawned on him. He hadn't been the one in control. His whole body ached in a way that confirmed it. Julian wasn't an Omega. He was an Alpha, and last night had been his rut. It all clicked into place. He slammed a fist on the bed. Julian had lied to him, or rather, he had never claimed to be an Omega in the first place. Ryan's words from the club came back to him. Some drunk Alpha had groped an Omega. Ryan had just assumed. Ethan wanted to cry. His perfect, delicate Omega was gone, replaced by a terrifyingly powerful Alpha. He found his phone and turned it on. It buzzed with missed calls. He sent a curt, angry message to Ryan, then texted his residency supervisor to call in sick for 2 days. His body felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. He couldn't stay in this apartment. He couldn't face Julian. He packed a bag, his muscles protesting with every move, and fled to his family's old, empty house across town. He slept until his stomach woke him. It was 10 at night. He saw more missed calls, one from a contact labeled Julian. The name sent a jolt through him, a confusing mix of pleasure and pain from the night before. He ignored it and ordered a pizza. While waiting, he checked his messages. Ryan had sent a string of question marks. Julian had sent 2 texts. One asked where he was. The other said to rest well, and that he would find him tomorrow. The conflict from the night before returned. Julian's words had been cruel, but Ethan's had been no better. It seemed Julian didn't want to break up. A day ago, this would have made him ecstatic. But now, the thought of a future with Julian made his legs tremble. He couldn't handle it. He closed the message, his mind too exhausted to deal with it. The next day, bad news arrived. His younger cousin, a beta who used a suppressor to pass as an alpha at the military academy, had been caught in a pheromonal crossfire and dosed with an induction drug. He was in the hospital. Ethan endured the full-body ache, took a cab, and rushed over. His cousin was stable but still unconscious. He updated his aunt and uncle, then sank onto a nearby bench, rubbing his sore shoulders. A woman with blonde hair and blue eyes tapped him. She smiled and showed him her phone, asking for directions to a specific hospital room. Ethan pointed her in the right direction. She thanked him with a charming accent, telling him he was very cute. He smiled awkwardly. As she walked away, he thought she looked familiar, something in her profile reminding him of Julian. He dismissed it. He was about to leave when a pair of long legs appeared in front of him. He looked up. It was Julian, dressed in a hospital gown, his hair a mess and his face pale. He looked fragile, a stark contrast to the powerhouse he'd been 2 nights ago. Ethan's heart clenched with a surprising amount of concern. He asked what Julian was doing here if he was unwell. They spoke at the same time, then fell silent. Ethan spoke first, explaining he was there to see his cousin. Julian's brow furrowed, his gaze dropping to Ethan's hand, which was instinctively massaging his lower back. Ethan quickly dropped his hand, embarrassed. His eyes were then drawn to a drop of blood on the floor. Then another. He looked up and saw a long crimson trail on Julian's arm, dripping from where an 4 had been. All thoughts of his own pain vanished. He shot up and took Julian's hand. The 4 had been pulled out carelessly. He berated him for being out of bed when he was sick. He was about to call for a nurse when Julian stopped him, insisting he was fine. As Ethan frantically looked around, someone handed him a cotton ball. He pressed it to the puncture wound, muttering a thank you. He turned and saw it was the blonde woman from before. She led them to Julian's private room. She explained that yesterday had been the final day of Julian's rut. Taking the entire vial of aphrodisiacs on top of that had overloaded his system. He'd collapsed from a nosebleed not long after leaving Ethan's apartment. As Ethan fussed over Julian, tucking him into bed, he glanced back at the woman. She smiled at him, again calling him cute. Before he could process the comment, Julian's low voice cut in, a clear in his tone as he said her name, Chloe. She shrugged, told Julian she was his sister, then winked at Ethan on her way out. Ethan's ears began to burn. A cool hand cupped his cheek, then pinched his earlobe. Julian's voice was flat, but it sent a shiver down his spine as he asked if she was good-looking. Ethan reflexively shook his head, the old habit of placating him kicking in. He insisted that Julian was the most beautiful. The answer seemed to satisfy Julian. The tension in the room eased. Julian released his ear and pulled him down onto the narrow hospital bed. Just the single phrase, sleeping in a hospital, managed to clear Ethan's mind of any stray thoughts. The custom-made bed in the single ward wasn't very large. They had to be pressed close together to both lie down. Julian pulled him into his arms, his warmth seeping through their clothes. A large hand began to gently rub his aching lower back. The familiar scent of Julian enveloped him. Ethan secretly looked up at him. From this angle, he was undeniably handsome. He hated his own fickle heart. The resolution he'd made just that afternoon was already crumbling. As if sensing his inner turmoil, Julian spoke, his voice quiet. He was sorry. Ethan looked up, confused. Julian pressed his head back down against his chest and continued. He apologized for how he had treated him the other night. He admitted that some of what those men had said was true. He had been a little intrigued by Ethan's persistence at first. Ethan started to pull away, but Julian held him fast, telling him not to say such things when they were finally close like this. He told Ethan that even if he started out as someone chasing him, it didn't have to end that way.